The wind howled across the open plains, dragging with it the bite of winter that clawed into every soul left unprepared. Snow crunched underfoot, the sky hung heavy with gray, and the silence was broken only by the low groan of trees, straining under their icy burden. On that lonely stretch of land, a woman moved slowly, burdened by an armful of freshly cut firewood. Her hair, streaked with silver, fell loose from beneath her scarf, whipping in the cold. Each step she took was measured, careful, as though one misstep would send both her and the load tumbling into the snow. Her breath rose in clouds, her face taut with the effort of carrying more weight than she could handle. She was no stranger to labor, but the years had etched themselves into her bones, making each task harder than the last. Not far away, a cowboy rode the ridge, scanning the land as he always did. His leather vest was worn but sturdy, his hat tilted low to shield his eyes from the cutting wind. He was used to solitude, used to silence, but his gaze caught something unusual down the trail. He saw her struggling, stumbling under the logs in her arms, and something in him stirred something deeper than duty. He dismounted, boots pressing into snow, and walked toward her with steady strides. The woman froze, startled by his sudden presence, pride warring with exhaustion in her eyes. Before she could protest, his voice, calm and warm, cut through the cold. "No one should carry that alone," he said, reaching for the wood. She hesitated, clutching the burden closer, but her tired arms finally relented. He took the load with ease, resting it against his broad frame as though it weighed nothing at all. For a moment, her chest tightened not from the cold, but from the unfamiliar sensation of being helped. They walked together in silence, his steady pace easing her struggle. She looked at him from the corner of her eye, noting the rugged lines on his face, the kind strength in his expression. He asked her name, and when she gave it, softly, almost shyly, he repeated it back as though it mattered more than the sound of the wind. By the time they reached her cabin, a small wooden structure nearly hidden by the forest edge, she felt lighter not just in her arms, but in her heart. He stacked the wood neatly by her door, and she whispered, "You didn't have to." The cowboy smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but sometimes a man keeps himself warm by helping someone else." Inside, the fire crackled weakly, but with the fresh logs, it grew stronger. She invited him in, poured him coffee with trembling hands, and together they sat by the hearth. He spoke of cattle, the open range, the loneliness of nights under a sky full of stars. She listened, her eyes reflecting the firelight, and then, slowly, she told him her own story of love lost, of years weathered alone, of burdens that never seemed to grow lighter. Every word was like wood added to the fire, fueling a warmth that neither had felt in years. By the time the cowboy rose to leave, the snow had thickened outside, but the cabin glowed with heat and something else, an unspoken connection. He tipped his hat, promising, "I'll be back tomorrow if you'll have me." She smiled softly, and for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the long night ahead. Hope had returned, carried by a man who had taken her burden and shared more than kindness. He had shared his heart. The next morning came quietly, a pale sun peeking through gray clouds as snowflakes drifted gently down. The woman opened her door to find fresh tracks in the snow leading up to her porch. The cowboy was already there, his breath forming clouds as he stacked another pile of firewood he had chopped himself. She watched him for a moment, her chest tightening with gratitude she could not yet voice. When he noticed her, he tipped his hat with that same warm smile. In the days that followed, he returned again and again. At first, it was to bring wood, to fix a loose shutter, to mend the fence leaning under the weight of snow. But soon, it was for more. He brought stories from his ranch, memories of a boyhood spent under endless skies, and dreams of a future not yet written. She shared with him the small joys she had once thought forgotten, the songs she used to hum by the fire, the bread she baked when the winters were not so harsh, the laughter of days gone by. Their companionship grew like the firewood. He stacked one log at a time, each adding warmth and strength. The neighbors began to notice too, whispering about the cowboy, who seemed to spend more time at the widow's cabin than his own ranch. But neither of them cared about talk. What mattered was the way her eyes softened when she looked at him, and the way his voice grew gentler when he spoke to her. One evening, as the wind howled and snow pressed against the windows, They sat together by the fire. He leaned forward, his rough hands folded, and said quietly, "Life's been cold a long time, but I don't want to ride through it alone anymore. What do you say we carry the load together?" Her eyes filled with tears, not from sorrow, but from the kind of relief that comes when a lonely soul finally finds shelter. She placed her hand on his, her voice trembling but sure. "I've been waiting for someone to ask that, though I never thought anyone would." From that night on, things changed. The cowboy no longer rode past her cabin. As a visitor he stayed, his presence filling the empty spaces she had grown used to. Together they faced the winter, stronger not because the snow had grown lighter, but because their hearts carried it together. She no longer struggled alone with firewood, and he no longer faced the silence of lonely nights. Their story became one of two weary souls finding warmth, love, and strength in each other. So, friends, this is how a cowboy found her struggling to carry firewood, took her burden, and ended up giving her more than just help. He gave her a new beginning, and in turn, he found his own. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep bringing you powerful stories of love, kindness, and hope that remind us all sometimes the greatest warmth comes not from fire, but from another person's heart.